I start my talk, I'm going to talk about something that happened the day before. I was with young children and teachers in a school set, in a foundational year setting, preschool setting. And you know what the teacher was doing? She was talking about sources of milk. And there were groups and children were talking. Very simple setting. Where do we get milk from? Okay? In one group that I was eavesdropping, and I use that word consciously, the children were saying milk comes from the mother dairy, the grocery shop, the packet that is left by the milkman, and so on and so forth. Okay? In another group, there was one child who said, milk, my mother feeds my younger sister. She is the source of milk for my younger sibling. He was referring to breastfeeding. In yet another group, something expected was an answer. There were children from different states, as happens in some settings. One child said, camel gives me milk. Okay? There is another child, the teacher had said, think of different kinds and ways where we can get milk from. And there was a long list which included the goat, the cow, the buffalo. I end my description of this here. When I made this description, you're obviously aware that the pedagogy that the teacher is using is something that appeals to all of us. Yeah, she's allowing children to talk, to converse, to express themselves in the way they want to. I take you to my topic, which has got the word higher education. You come to higher education only when you go through school education. You cannot just arrive at school education, at higher education. Now, how many times are we allowed to think like these young children were thinking? Is a question I want to flag before I talk of anything else. And when I stop with my anecdote, I want you to tell you something. I am saying that the animals do not give us milk. Okay? And I'm parking this question for you to think about. Before I leave this room, which will be at 5:25 because I have to catch a flight today at 8. At 5:25, I will give you an answer why I'm saying that the animals do not give us milk. I am not trying to tell you that the toddlers were wrong, but I'm going to tell you something which will make you sit here. Okay, and that is why I'm just parking this question here and proceeding with my next part of my talk. Is the scenario clear to everybody? Yes. If it is not, you're my best friend. Okay, and I want to go back with friends here. Okay, so presuming that you're all my friends and you're ready to listen to what I have to say, I'm going to tell you what I'm going to rattle in front of you today in the next 20 minutes. I'm going to talk about what internalization of higher education, what are its main components. Because you're young students here as well, and others need to reflect as with me. What are its benefits? And what is a policy? Like Rinchen said in the morning, that a policy is not something that's written by a few in air-conditioned rooms and handed over, but a policy is something that a king in Bhutan moved from one hilltop to another hilltop, asking people what they want to put in the policy. Similarly, our new policy of education has many comments that have come from the ground. What does this NEP 2020, which is no longer new because it's 4 years old already, yeah? So it's a walking child, like the ones who were talking about the milk. Okay? Now, this policy, what does it say for higher education? What does it tell us? What does it say when it says with a sense of some sense of almost sorrow that we had Taxila, we had Nalanda, we had universities where people from all over the world used to beeline towards, sit and spend years. Where have these institutions, should I say gone? No, I don't think I should say gone. But where are these institutions and where is this pride that we have? What does the policy say about higher education? My PPT has extensively tried to cover that so that you understand what the policy really talks about in India. And here primarily we have audience except for Rinchen who are from India. So I think it makes sense when I'm just concentrating on what our policies say. I am then also going to go and talk about what I feel is important for us to understand how inclusion and equity, which Professor Mukhopadhyay was just talking about so beautifully when I was asked to come here, and I know what she's saying and you know what she's saying, and what I'm going to say you also know. We talk about fairness. Where is fairness and what fairness are we talking about? So I'm going to talk about inclusion and equity and say that for me, my argument is that it's a prerequisite for internationalization of higher education. Because when we are talking of inviting others in, we are not talking only of disability as a component of inclusion. We are talking of people who may be much taller than us. I remember doing training programs in many parts of Africa where I had to almost look up at those who were my participants. Even here I have to still stand here like that to really know. And it used to take me a day and a half to get acclimatized to their accent, to their body structure, to what were the mannerisms, yeah, and what was their culture, though I had done all the reading. But it really meant when I moved from one country to another, how do I have to wear my hairstyle? When I move in Uttar Pradesh, what dress should I wear? What should I wear when I go down south in one particular rural community? So, in and outside the country, we need to remember that if we are really going to talk about equity, we must appear to be inclusionists. We must practice inclusion, we must believe in it, and we must model it. Because if you don't do that, you are talking only to yourself. And as teacher educators, we cannot allow ourselves to do that. So welcoming diversity, equity, fairness, and what NCERT, for which the organization for which I've almost worked for 4 decades, what does it have to say? What does NCERT's recent focus on international aspects of promoting what the policy is saying? What have we done? So I'm now into 5:10. You have to brace up with me with my pace because 5:10 means another 10 minutes, okay? So here I go. This is what I've already given you. This also I have talked about what are the main components. We are getting to recruit students. That's what the policy is talking about. We bring in students. We give them education in a way that they feel that India is giving us a curriculum which is international. India has teacher educators which are at par with other organizations. India monitors our growth. Yeah? India is cost effective in what it is giving. And it is also keen to build regional and international linkages. So these are the main components of internationalization. There are benefits, you can go through this. The policy says India to be a global study destination. Now if it's a study destination, you have to set up offices. Nobody is going to come to you because XYZ is calling you. You have to give financial support if you can. You have to monitor it. You have to set up campuses, both in the country and abroad. Right? If I say that IIT Madras is setting up of institutions in Dubai, in Abu Dhabi. Yeah, why are they doing it? Because they can give something to these nations which is of value to both. So that's what the policy is saying. And what measures have we taken? That's something we also need to think about. We are not just dreaming, okay? It's always good to have big dreams. It's always good to think small and big simultaneously. But there's a lot of action that has already happened, and that's what I've also tried to summarize in my PPTs, slide 5. I think that is the number right now, which, for those who may not be able to see this from the distance, I may just quickly run through it. We have already established guidelines that exist. You know what happens when there are guidelines. You know what happens in a school when there's an office order that comes. You know? All that we keep saying will never make complete action unless there's an order that circulates from the higher authorities. So there are guidelines in place, there are things that have happened, there is, we have already thought of scholarships, how we can put them in place, and how, as I said, campuses abroad are going to be strengthened, and campuses in our country are going to be strengthened. You know, we have sifted what the world needs. Yeah? We know the world looks at yoga. Yeah? We know that our culture has a heritage. We know that that makes sense to people. So yoga, arts, music, history, culture, modern India, and our Ayush system of health. All this we have already flagged to happen. Now, we have got many institutions which are thinking of giving dual degree programs. So you get a degree from India, but you can go and spend 6 months in Netherlands, like Rinchen did, probably to do his course, right? But when you come back, your degree is granted here. So what are you doing? You are sending students to another country, and as part of your degree. Now when you're doing that, it's very simple. You're exposing them to a system of education which you may have read about, but as we were talking on morning today, there's a face-to-face connect. Yeah? What it means to stay with a family. Yeah, when there is an exchange program. During COVID, NCERT's demonstration schools connected with South Korean children. And that was such an excellent initiative that NCERT took. Simply because we just thought children are all by themselves. Children need to talk to children. Because all they are doing is, during COVID, elders talking to children. And that brought up, again, a lot of energy in the field. These guidelines, as I said, exist. I leave it for you to read further and think about these in greater detail. I am just setting the scene for more to come. I would also like to say that, excuse me, being a teacher, even though I have a mic, I like to talk loudly. Okay. We are also keen that our global ranking improves. So, you see, the policy has looked into all nitty-gritties and is aware of what are our current limitations as well. So, that's the balance that I wanted to highlight. We are also talking about internationalization at home. What does that mean? It's always said charity begins at home. Now, if I do not purposefully use cultural diversity in the classroom for inclusive learning, teaching, and what Rinchen was mentioning in the morning, assessment, I will not know it all. I have to put my hands in the pie. Only then will I really know what next to do. So this is also something that's going parallel with internationalization of higher education. As I said, there is credit recognition and twining arrangements. We are very much aware now, more than ever before, that we have to prepare global citizens. Whether it's for employment, whether it's for education, whether it is for our planet being more equal, fair, and sustainable. That's what is also the goal. And ICT based, we've talked about it, the panel in the morning gave us a good food for thought. Academic and research collaboration. We strengthen our learning when we go and knock a door in another country and say, this is what we are doing, our researchers say. Can we work on these aspects? Does it fit in your total matrix? Can we work together on this? So how do we do that brand building abroad? How do we connect the alumni? All these are issues that we are thinking about. How do our offices for international affairs work? When I talk about inclusion and equity, India is a signatory to SDG goals. There is, I think even the walls know it. Since the last 3 days we've been talking about this. NAP says 2020, our new policy, very clearly says that the approach to equity and inclusion must not only be in school and that's the end, the curtain comes down. No, it has to be across the board. Okay, so you have to start with toddlers. Remember, I flagged that right in the beginning. And you have to take it across the years of learning. And learning never stops. So that's something that the policies mandates very clearly. Our legal act, and you know what a legal act means. You can be in trouble if you don't follow a legal act. So our legal acts also very clearly mention that. So internationalization of higher education in India can only be realized when we comply with the principles of inclusion and equity. And as they are prescribed in SDG goals and the RPWD Act. This recent publication of UNESCO gives us a lot of food for thought. I just thought I will show you the cover for those students who want to read further. It's free of cost, it's downloadable, and it's available for international participants in many international languages, French, Spanish, and English being one of them. We need to remember, friends, and I'm now coming almost to the end of my talk, and I'm going to spend another 7 minutes in my end when I say that we must remember that we are sitting in a country where Professor Mukhopadhyay was saying it in the other room, we've heard it all the 3 days here, that disability being the only focus of inclusion is something, a thing of the past. We are talking about the learning needs, the diverse learning needs of children. And the children, when I say children, I also mean persons in higher education. I could have a fair complexion, I could be dark, I could not have hair on my head because I choose to be born. Okay? I could wear long earrings and I may not wear earrings. I am the same person, that is the student, who I as a teacher and educator have to prepare teachers to accommodate, and I as a teacher have to teach. And teach according to what is the current status. We are not here to fill pots. All students have a lot of scope to gain knowledge. We are facilitators for reflection on issues. We are facilitators to get people into groups like the foundational years, the teacher who is talking about the sources of milk I talked about. So this approach needs to be really kept in mind. How do we support? How do we look at it as a process? If I cannot talk to you because this is standard, yeah, with nothing meant for the organizers. I see this the world over. I always ask for a board, which if I'm not standing on my heels, I need a board. Why is it that we make this? We need to ask ourselves this. Why is it that this barrier is something that we see universally? Why is it that we think of a ramp and we don't think of a blackboard that needs to be brought down, because a wheelchair user can also go and write on the blackboard just like a child who stands and writes? We don't think of this. Why? Because majority are standing and running to the blackboards. There may be just one or two who may be using a wheelchair. Mind you, I said using a wheelchair, not wheelchair bound. because wheelchair bound also has a connotation which is not inclusive. We can talk of a child having remaining sight and not low vision, because then the focus is on what's existing, and that's what makes you think about learning differences which we need to accommodate. So how do we look at it as a process, and how do we look at equity? I think this is familiar to everybody, but what I want you to remember is that if there are children with a particular disability which is visible, you don't just make them sit together in a class. And you don't just glorify a child who is blind. Mind you, not a blind child. A child who is blind. Because first he or she is a child. First he or she is a person in higher education, and then a person who has some different learning need. And that barrier is caused because I make this board like this, not because I am shocked. That's not what you need to highlight. You need to highlight the fact that we need to have accessible environments for everybody. And we need to think about this when we plan school systems and university systems. We are talking about this. You must like this because I spend a lot of time on this. Okay? Yeah? All right. I hope you get the message. We are changing the system to fit the learner. And every learner in your environment. How do we provide accessible content to all learners? I think we've been talking about this. If a child is coming from a poor home, is it the child's fault? Did we decide where we were to be born? Is he a poor child, or is he just a child from a poor home? These are questions that we need to think about. We heard today the Moroccan story, the medium of instruction, both in our country and, for example, in Morocco and many other countries. What happens if I switch to French now? I can speak fluently French. But you'll say, ma'am, what happened? You were speaking in English and Hindi, and now you're speaking in French. I mean, is it time for you to leave, and you want to just tell us that you can speak French? No. It's simply because, and then I say, you were not attentive. And if you're not attentive for 20 days, I send you for examination, and I say, look up this person. He may be not a good learner. And I may even use terms such as intellectually challenged. Simply because I'm speaking a language which you are not understanding. And is it really right that all day you sit here from 8 in the morning to 4 and listen to me and try to lip read and try to read my body language to understand what I'm saying? That's happening. You know it, I know it. So we have to think about these issues. How do we provide support? How do we plan a curriculum that's inclusive? How do we plan an infrastructure that's accessible? What sort of support do our learners need? What's affirmative action? How do we do research and innovation? And how do we really provide something that's different from a print media? We think that if we print textbooks, we've done our jobs. No, that's not the only source of learning. UDL says we have to provide different media to children according to their needs. How do we do that? What is really an accessible material? I warned you in the beginning, my slides are too wordy. That's for you to read later, not now. What do our essential components of accessibility say? There are technical standards, friends. It's not something that I like and you like or X likes. It's all written, and we need to follow it to the last syllable. We cannot play with this. What are technical standards of accessibility need to be followed for all, so that all can be learning with ease and comfort. And what are the pedagogical adaptations that are required? How do we make reading platforms like electronic devices on which content is accessed and interacted with? All this must comply to our technical standards. These are things that we have agreed to do. So stop sleeping, start working. We need to start working now because it's already too late. We have worked on certain principles and we found these very useful. Any material that we work on should be perceivable, operable, understandable, and robust. Okay? And what this building has to say, I have put in small boxes. I leave it to you to read. There are guidelines that are available in our country that we prepared during COVID on how we should prepare e-content. And these are both academic and non-academic guideline components it has. So again, this is available on the ministry's website and NCERT websites. What was said today morning, I just reiterated. And it was said beautifully in the morning in the panel discussion. I reiterated it because we are coming to the end of the 3 lovely days. And that is, you could have the best technology, but there is no replacement for content and pedagogy and face-to-face human touch. Yes, there is 1 minute left, and there is just a few slides which talk about what could be some high-tech, middle-tech, and low-tech assistive technology that we can use. NCERT's experience is based on school education. But as I said, school education leads to higher education. We have already preempted to a large extent what the policy is saying. I will just end by 2 lines and say that we have worked on MOUs. One of the major things that we did as part of our international mandate, following what the policy is saying, is work on useful memorandum of understanding with countries, where there is a give and take. We are not going with a platter saying, it's all empty, tell me what to write. No, we are saying, we have done this, we want to share it with you, you tell us what you want to give us, so that we can then learn and grow together. So we have memorandums of understanding with Finland, and that's going strong, it's already 3 years old. We have a memorandum of understanding with South Korea, which is now 7 years old. We have a memorandum of understanding with a small country like Taiwan, okay, which is even smaller than probably Bhutan. I don't know. We have one with Australia, with US, with Mauritius, and we have students who come from different parts, who come to be with us and stay with us and learn with us, so that they know what an autonomous organization is all about and what we are doing. So I just will finally say this, that I promise that I'll tell you why I said that the animals do not give us milk. When we milk a cow and we say we have got this 15 liters of milk from these 3 buffaloes and 2 cows, we have to get up at 4 in the morning. We have to walk through a field which may be full of cow dung. We have to walk the path, and we have to talk to the animal, bring the animal's young baby to start suckling, so that the or the buffalo or the goat or the camel is ready for us to milk. Let's remember, in all that I've said, we have to take all these steps. It will not happen overnight. It cannot happen in a day. It's something that we have to do together. So a cow, a buffalo, a camel, a goat does not give milk. We have to milk them. And that's a process. We have to, each one of us, draw our own inspirations and set our own standards and set our own action within what we have got to get actually the inclusion and equity perspective for internationalization of higher education going. Thank you very much.